Hey, are you getting rich yet? How's Donald Trump's economy treating you? Do you have stocks? How about that stock market at record highs, firmly in bull territory, heading upward and onward? Donald Trump must be an economic genius. He has taken credit for the increase in the stock market, but he doesn't want to take credit for his fake jobs reports and the best downward spiraling economy in the world. What do you think, Republicans? Well, let me burst your bubble. Let's talk about the stock market first. That same stock market experienced historic highs and a prolonged bull market during, wait for this, Joe Biden's administration. So was it really Donald Trump? Well, yet in reality, what does that mean for you and me anyway? Consider this. The top 10% of Americans own 93% of the stocks. Every time the market goes up, every time they announce record profits on CNBC or Fox, 93 cents of every dollar in new wealth goes to people who already have wealth. Trump calls that economic growth, but the math calls it something else. And here's what I want you to sit with before we go any further. This isn't by accident. No, it's not. You've heard the word Trumponomics. The media throws it around. The pundits argue about it. Half the country thinks it saved them. The other half thinks it broke them. But almost nobody does the math. So that's what we're doing today here on Clear Signal. We're going to look at the actual numbers from the Federal Reserve, from the Congressional Budget Office, from the Tax Policy Center. And we're going to build the case, piece by piece, the way detectives do it. That's the way we do it here on Clear Signal. And by the time we're done, I think you're going to see something the news won't show you. The U.S. economy isn't broken, not in the way you might think. It's working exactly as designed. The question is, designed by whom? Now, on July 4th, 2025, Independence Day, Donald Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law. And I want to be honest with you right up front. If you're a middle-class family, you did get something out of this bill. Your meager tax cuts are now permanent. The standard deduction is locked in. Your refund in 2026 should go up. That part is real. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. But here's what I need you to do with me right now. I need you to follow the math all the way to the end. Not just the part they showed you on the news. All of it. Because when you do, the picture looks different. Let's start with the distribution. The CBO and the Joint Committee on Taxation scored this bill independently. They aren't partisan outfits. Don't listen to anybody who says they are. These are the official congressional scorekeepers. They're finding the top 1% of Americans, the richest households in the country, will receive an average tax cut of, wait for it, $50,000 per year from this bill. The top 10%, $14,700 per year. A middle-class household, medium income, filing jointly, will see somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 per year. Same bill, same law, 3 different outcomes depending on your zip code. Now, that's not a tax cut. That's a tax cut with a hierarchy. Now, here's where the evidence gets damning. Because while Congress was busy making your tax cut permanent, they were also running another policy at exactly the same time. Tariffs. The Yale Budget Lab ran the numbers. Nonpartisan economic research once again. The 2025 tariff policy raised the average effective U.S. tariff rate to 22.5%, the highest since, get this, 1909. The consumer price impact, 2.3% increase across the country. That's in real dollars. That's an average household purchasing power loss of about $3,800 per year. Your tax cut is about $1,500, minus $3,800 in higher prices on food, clothing, appliances, cars, and let's not forget fuel. That's not a tax cut. That's a net loss of $2,300. And here's what makes it even more damning. Tariffs are what economists call a consumption tax. The more of your income you spend on goods, the harder you get hit. Middle-class families spend a higher percentage of their income on physical goods than wealthy families do. That's a statistic. Wealthy families spend a higher percentage on services, investments, and assets. The rich got a $50,000 tax cut. They don't feel a $3,800 hit the same way that you do. That's not an accident. That's architecture, built for the rich. But I want you to stay with me for just one more number, because this one is the one they really don't want you thinking about. The Congressional Budget Office scored the total cost of the One Big Beautiful Bill at $3.4 trillion, added to the national debt over the next 10 years. Now, when you factor in the interest payments on that borrowed money, more than $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That money doesn't come from nowhere. It gets borrowed today and paid back maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, through higher taxes, reduced services, or inflation that erodes your savings. Who borrows the money? The federal government. Who captures most of the benefits from the borrowed money? Who pays the bill when it comes due? Not them. The carried interest loophole, where hedge fund managers pay a 20% capital gains rate instead of the 37% rate you'd pay on the same income. That loophole survived this bill. 8 presidents, both parties. It's still there. You pay 17% more than rich people do. The estate tax threshold was raised again. Only the 4,000 richest estates in America owe estate tax at all. That number just got smaller. They told you this bill was for you. The math says otherwise. Now here's what they didn't tell you. Just recently, Jeff Bezos, the second richest man on the planet, proposed eliminating income taxes for the bottom 76 million households. Wow, that sounds generous, doesn't it? Until you read line 4. His personal fortune, $200 billion, is not an income. It's an unrealized capital gains from his shares in Amazon, taxed only if he sells them. So he's not making an exchange here. The 76 million people will not pay taxes, and instead him and his billionaire buddies will. No, he's not proposing to increase taxes on capital gains for billionaires like himself. He's proposing to stop taxing people who, for the most part, don't pay taxes because they qualify for tax credits or don't make enough money to pay taxes. This would help those among them that do pay taxes, but in that case, who makes up the difference in lost tax revenue? It will only increase the debt. See, this is a misdirection. Here's the deeper problem. After 40 years of these policies, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush again, Obama, and Trump, the U.S. economy is now structurally dependent on the spending behavior of the top 10%. Economists call it the K-shaped economy. The top goes up, the bottom goes down, the curve splits in 2 directions. When wealthy households pull back their spending, when they get nervous, when markets wobble, when their taxes go up, GDP goes down. Consumer spending then drops. Businesses close. Jobs disappear. Not because working people stopped working, because the people at the top of the K stopped spending. The Federal Reserve knows this. The Congressional Budget Office knows this. Every serious economist in Washington, D.C. knows this. And here's what that means in plain language. If the rich catch a cold, you get the flu. That's not a metaphor. That is the documented mechanism of the modern American economy. Let's talk about the Fed for a moment, because this is where it really gets ugly. After the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve launched something called quantitative easing, or QE. Many people have heard this term, but most people don't know what it really means. So here's what it means. The Fed creates money out of thin air and uses it to buy financial assets, mortgage-backed securities. It floods the financial system with liquidity. That means it's flooding it with cash. Where does that go? What does that do? It inflates asset prices. Real estate goes up. Bonds go up. Who owns those assets? You want to take a guess? You're right, the top 10%. The Fed ran QE 3 separate times between 2008 and 2014. Their balance sheet went from $900 billion to $4.5 trillion, 5 times larger. And real wages? Your wages? Well, average real wage growth over the same period, 0.2% per year. The Fed printed $5 trillion and you got a 0.25% raise. What? I want you to sit with that for a moment. Who's gaming the system here? It's not you. If this video is hitting you different, If you're seeing something in this data that you felt but have never been able to put into words, share it. And while you're at it, like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot. Thank you. So now we get into the theory, because evidence without a theory is just noise. So here's my theory, and I'm going to back it up. The U.S. economy did not accidentally become dependent on the wealth of 10% of the population. Someone wrote the tax codes. Someone lobbied for the loopholes. Someone funded the campaigns that kept the loopholes alive through 4 presidential administrations. Let me give you one specific example. The carried interest loophole. I've talked a little bit about this. This is a provision in the tax code that allows hedge fund managers and private equity executives to pay a 20% capital gains on their earnings, instead of the standard income tax rate, which would be around 37% for their income bracket. The difference on a $50 million annual income is roughly $8.5 million per person per year. Now, this loophole has survived Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump again. 8 presidents, both parties. I know what some of you are thinking. I know. David, that's just the way Washington works. Get used to it. Everyone does it. And you're right. Everyone does it. That's the point. This isn't partisan. This is systemic. This is a machine that runs the same program regardless of which party is operating the controls. Trump didn't build this machine, but he has accelerated it. He signed the bill. He made the corporate cuts permanent. He appointed a new Fed chair. He ran the playbook. They are not managing the economy for you. They are managing the economy for the people who funded their campaigns. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a documented financial transaction. Here's where the clear signal formula pays off, because once you understand the evidence and the theory, you can predict what's coming. I'm giving you 3 specific signal flags. Write these down. Signal flag 1, the debt ceiling and spending cuts. The $3.4 trillion big beautiful bill has to be paid somehow. Watch what gets cut next. Usually they want to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security cost of living adjustments. Those are the line items that usually get quietly trimmed to offset the deficit. Watch the budget reconciliation process. That's where the real math happens, away from the cameras. Signal flag 2, the estate tax threshold. The current exception is $13.6 million per individual. If it gets raised further or eliminated, that is a direct intergenerational wealth transfer mechanism, not to workers, to heirs of the richest families in America. Watch that number. Signal flag number 3, Federal Reserve rate decisions. Now, we're going to have some decisions coming up on whether the Fed will raise rates, cut rates, or keep them the same. Now, when the Fed cuts rates in a slowing economy, watch who benefits first. Asset prices respond immediately. Mortgage and car loans respond in months. The sequence is not random. It's architectural. These aren't predictions about politics. These are predictions about engineering. You don't need to guess what happens next. You just need to watch the machine. Okay, here's my verdict. The U.S. economy is not broken. It is performing exactly as the people who designed it intended it to perform. It generates growth. It generates wealth. It produces record stock markets and record corporate profits. It just doesn't distribute that growth evenly. Tax cuts are given to the wealthiest people on the backs of the most vulnerable Americans. And the reason this system doesn't distribute that growth evenly isn't bad luck. It isn't laziness on the part of us who live in the middle class. It's a natural law of economics. The rich get richer. It's a series of deliberate policy decisions made over 40 years, funded by the people who benefit from them, implemented by politicians from both parties who depend on those funds to stay in power. You got a tax cut. That's real. You're also paying at least $3,800 more a year at the register, and your grandchildren are on the hook for $4 trillion. The math proves it. The question isn't why the rich keep getting richer. The question is, now that you've seen the math, what are you going to do with that information? It's time to force our lawmakers to make a change that favors the middle class and not the rich. Now share this video with someone who needs to see the numbers, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. This is Clear Signal. I'm David Thompson. I'll see you next time.